Take your career to the next level. The University of South Florida, St. Petersburg is offering a master's degree in digital journalism and design. Do the entire program from home and complete it in as little as 1 year. For more information, email journalism@usf.edu or call 727-873-4544. The cost is reasonable. The experience is invaluable.
Hey, everybody, if you like this podcast, can I ask you a favor? I'd love to make sure you also subscribe to the Poynter Report newsletter, where I bring you the latest news and commentary about the media industry every weekday. If you're already signed up, thanks a lot. But you should also check out some of the other great newsletters we have at poynter.org/newsletters. My colleague, Kristen Hare, focuses on the local news scene in communities all across the country every Wednesday with Local Edition. My editor, Ren LaForme, gives you the roundup of the best media stories from Poynter every Friday in his Open Tabs newsletter. And if you care about misinformation, fact-checking, getting to the truth, the Factually newsletter has you covered. And if you're looking for some great ways to improve your skills in writing, leadership, or ethics, our weekly training digest has you covered. Just go to poynter.org/newsletters and sign up today.
From the worldwide leader in journalism, truth, and democracy, this is the Poynter Report Podcast, a joint production between the Poynter Institute and the Department of Journalism and Digital Communication at the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg. Now here's your host from the Poynter Institute, Tom Jones.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Welcome into the Poynter Report Podcast. I can't tell you how excited I am to have this guest today. Christine Brennan, legendary sports columnist from USA Today and really a pioneer in sports journalism, the first female sports writer at the Miami Herald, the first woman to cover the Washington football team as a staff writer for the Washington Post. And of course, she's covered like a million Olympics, it seems like, written a billion columns, all of them relevant, all of them really smart. And she's written 8 books, including this most recent one, which is just really burning up the New York Times bestseller list. It's Caitlin Clark, On Her Game, Caitlin Clark, and the Revolution in Women's Sports. Christine, thanks so much for taking some time.
Oh, Tom, my pleasure. You know how they used to call in and say, I'm a avid listener on radio shows. Well, I'm an avid reader. I get your newsletter every day and I love it. And thanks for all that you do. So it's an honor to be on with you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks so much. We were just talking a few moments ago before you came on about your time coming to Poynter and going to the very first sports journalism summit years ago and all the people you met. And we still brag that you were here for our first summit. So it's really cool coming back full circle, I guess, here.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Thank you. Well, it was all of us really, super young, like in our early to mid 20s, and Tom Boswell, who then, of course, I'd go on to work with for 12 years at the Washington Post,
Right.
But he was giving us advice. Roy Peter Clark talking about just reading good writing and typing it into your, into a typewriter or whatever, just to have the sense of what that would feel like, not to do anything with it other
Right.
than just it for yourself. All those, I mean, my goodness, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday. and I can remember something from, I think, 1982. So it was pretty cool.
Wow, that's really cool. Thanks so much for all you do to support Poynter as well. Look, this book is terrific. I read it like in 2 sittings. It was really well done. And, Christine, as I was, I'm a former sports columnist and covered sports for a long time. And I was trying to think of somebody, as I was reading this, trying to think of somebody who moved the sports needle as much as Caitlin Clark has and did when she first came into the league. The only person I think that's even on the radar maybe would be Tiger Woods, but Tiger's an individual. This is a woman in a team sport. What drew you, and was that part of it that drew you to write about Caitlin Clark?
Well, absolutely. And as you know, in the book, I do mention Tiger, that singular athlete who was able to transcend the sport, right? So that you had grandmothers and maybe grandfathers too, who couldn't tell the difference between a birdie and a bogey. They would be rearranging their Sunday afternoons of the Masters around Tiger's final round tee time, right?
Sure.
And that's the same. And the flip side here is that the guys who always laughed about women's basketball, I'd be on radio shows, I'd get laughed at. It would be one of those things where you'd be talking about a women's Final Four. I was covering them. I covered the WNBA very early on, Lifetime TV in 1999, a full 5-6 games of TV coverage, sideline reporting or commentating. And, so I'd go on the shows and you get laughed. People thought, oh, it's just, they're rolling around the floor, a lot of jump balls. It's not good basketball. They're below the rim, of course. There's no dunking. And, what is this? And it's just not any good. And the people who'd either call in or the hosts of those radio shows who were friends, and I would do those because I don't care. I will defend and talk about whatever. I don't, if all this bothered me, I would have been hiding under a bed in 1982 and never come out.
Right.
So none of, bring it on. That's fine. Even now, of course, totally. But those guys now are the guys that are getting the 22 jerseys either as presents or buying them themselves. They're wearing them not only to games, but also to the grocery store and the gas station. Similar thing, the singular athlete transcending her or his sport. A big difference, I think the big difference is men's golf had already had Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus. It had already had Sam Snead and Bobby Jones and Byron Nelson. So they had the sponsors, my goodness, golf, the best,
sure.
right?
Right.
Financial institutions, the wonderful luxury cars, everything. Men's golf was at a point, and then Tiger took it to a whole new level. But and those ratings, of course, now have come crashing down without Tiger being around. I covered him the length of his career, so I was lucky, fortunate to have a front row seat for all of that.
Right.
The difference, of course, with the WNBA is it has never gotten its due. I've tried so many others to talk about it, to write about it, to talk about it on CNN, to bring up the WNBA when people talk about the NBA and the bubble, Black Lives Matter activism. Let's talk about the NBA too. And let's talk about the WNBA too, right, as a commentator to be, of course, focused on the NBA. And so that had never happened. Now the Indiana Fever with Caitlin Clark are covered and are really seen as fervently and with as many eyeballs as a men's major league sport.
Sure.
And with attendance and TV ratings and all the social media interaction. And so that's Caitlin Clark. So she is more important to women's basketball than Tiger was to men's golf, even though he was, just totally essential. And I think you can make the case that there's no one in any sport who has been more important to her or his sport than Caitlin Clark is to the WNBA and women's basketball, because it had so much farther to go because it was always so ignored by the male-dominated mainstream sports media.
We'll get into some of the issues that the WNBA had with Clark coming into the league. But before that, you wrote this book incredibly fast, I imagine, for a book. How were you able to write it as quickly as you did? And I imagine everybody in the world's pulling at Caitlin Clark. The access must have been difficult to her.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because as we talk here today in mid to late July, 54 weeks ago, I wasn't even thinking of writing a book. I had a conversation with the Scribner editor on July 10th of 2024. So it's almost 54 weeks ago.
Just a little over a year ago. Yeah.
Right. And I've written 3 books with Scribner, but it had been a while. My father-daughter memoir, Best Seat in the House, was back in 2006.
Classic, but legendary book. People should read it. Yeah.
Thanks. Oh, thanks. Well, my dad and my mom too. And I had my own personal Title IX. I had my dad, a girl dad before we even knew what that term meant. How lucky I was, and my siblings as well. So anyway, but it had been a while, 2006. So here we were, 2024, and I was happy not writing books. I mean, there's the interesting thing. I think some people assume, well, if you're a writer, you just can write books just like newspaper columns. Well, no, as you know, because you do that incredible daily, column of a compilation and deal with the issues in the media every day or Monday through Friday. When you write a column and you're done, you're done.
You're done. That's right.
And you can go to dinner, you can, go to sleep early, you can watch a movie, you can do whatever you want to do. And it's kind of instant gratification. Not that you see your name in print and it's an ego thing. No, but it's finished. You put that aside. Live TV, which I'm so lucky to do with CNN and ABC and PBS NewsHour. That's also you're done. I turn off the ring light and the Zoom or the Cisco, and I'm done. Obviously, a book, you're never done. So you just, 3 a.m, you wake up and your heart's racing and I'm going to do 10 things. You write it down, try to get a few more hours sleep. And I was able to do that. But
so you were doing your other job while you're doing this, right? I mean, it's not like you stopped writing totally.
To a certain degree, yeah. So we get actually sight unseen, no book proposal. Rick Horgan, my editor at Scribner, We had a Zoom call on the 10th. He gave me the offer on the 11th. I was not expecting it. I was heading to the Paris Olympics. I was packing and getting organized, and he called and offered, a wonderful book advance to do it. Again, no proposal, no plan, no nothing. Just write about Caitlin Clark and follow that second half of the season, or after a little bit less than half after the Olympics. So I immediately, of course, talked to the Fever people. I talked to Caitlin Clark's agent, Aaron Kane, right away. Filled them in, explained everything, explained how I was not expecting this, but the opportunity is just too good because it's Caitlin Clark, but it's also Title IX. It's a subject that I've covered, even though Caitlin Clark I had not covered very long because she just arrived within 2 years into our national consciousness in a huge way. But, the idea of girls and women playing sports and coming of age is 53 years now, Title IX. And I never thought, I said this on USA Today calls, Tom, I never thought in my lifetime I would see people lined up for hours in January and February going into huge Big Ten arenas at Ohio State, University of Maryland, my alma mater, Northwestern, Indiana University, all of them like it's a Springsteen concert or Beyonce or Taylor Swift. And they're all in line in the cold for hours, waiting and waiting to go into an arena to watch a woman play basketball. That would have been unthinkable to me throughout the length of my career and as long as I would live. And here it was happening. So that's it. Iowa, the story of Iowa, 6-on-6 girl basketball, very much like Hoosiers for boys in Indiana. All of this, I knew it. I covered it. I'd been around it. Did a high school debate on Iowa 6-on-6 girls basketball when I was growing up in the suburbs of Toledo, Ohio. So, I was well aware. And it just seemed like a natural fit for me for the next book. And then, yes, quick. Got back from the Paris Olympics, went right to Indy, that Paris to Indianapolis, flight. You do change planes. I'm teasing. Indy's great. It's perfect location for Caitlin Clark. A chapter called Hello, Indianapolis. If she'd gone to New York, no. LA, no. Chicago, no. Indianapolis, perfect. Not too big, not too small. Love the Olympic sports. I've probably spent 6 months of my life in Indy covering Olympic trials, track and field, Carl Lewis, swimming with Phelps and Katie Ledecky, all the things that Indy hosts. It's the perfect place to just embrace her, plus the love of basketball in India. So anyway, but yeah, I sat right here, actually. I have a few places I Zoom. I just came here. And this is where I sat and wrote. And I basically wrote that book on her game in basically November, December, January, February. 4 months. And, a quick book is a year, right? So I just had to really, really do it. I had an idea. We had a plan. I didn't really have outlines, and I made outlines as I went along and was reporting and writing and interviewing while I was writing. But it was also very much in keeping with me as a journalist. This is it was like the world's biggest column, right? Or the biggest reported story. And then I had a couple months to fiddle with it. It was literally late April. I pulled an all-nighter. It's any age, especially when you're a little older. That's a tough one, but I had to. I fact-checked everything again because I just wanted to make sure. I knew people would be lying in wait because of the whole
the topic itself, yeah.
And then wanting to ban me, which of course failed miserably. I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Yeah. And, that's just beyond ridiculous, but they did it and they failed. But, I knew that there'd be could be controversy. There has been for sure with the book. I wanted to make sure, just button it down. I'm a meticulous fact checker. So I did that, checked it all again. So late April, and then it was out on July, 8th. But even around a week before that. So it was quick, but by no means should anyone think it was hurried in the sense of, I'm very proud of it, very happy. And I think, one of the things that it allowed me to do was touch on so many subjects, but make it a quick read. That's what I'm hearing over and over, some reviews and from readers who in line in Iowa or wherever. And it's just one of those things where people, I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people signing books. I'm not going to waste your time. You're going to get a lot, but I'm also going to do deep dives in some things, but not in others, because one, I had to move along, but two, this is sports. It is Caitlin Clark magic. And then there are very serious journalistic issues. I can do all this in one book. And as I said, I worked hard, got it done, and I'm very pleased with it. Obviously, we're never completely satisfied, but I'm pretty close on this one. So yes, it was quick, but again, that's what journalists do. Sure. And it was the perfect time for me to do something like this, I guess. even though don't ask me what my next book is because I'm not doing it for a while.
Well, you do a great job, and I encourage people to read the book. You do a great job talking about her upbringing and sort of her competitive spirit and her, growing up in a family of athletes. And then, of course, you introduce us to the part where we all we all became familiar with her at the University of Iowa and this incredible college career. But the part I want to fast forward to, and the first part that really sort of smacked me in the face is Caitlin Clark declares for the WNBA draft. And the day after the draft, you tell a story. I don't want you to give away too much of the book here, but you tell a story about you talked to a WNBA executive and it basically said, you realize what you have coming, right? And what was sort of the response that you got from this executive?
Yeah, it was actually a fun call. I think a lot of people expect, this, of course, with your incredible journalism career prior to being the media critic at Poynter, the gold standard, the bastion of what we do in journalism. And, you make a lot of calls just to chat with people, right? I mean, I'm not always calling to get a scoop or a story. You just,
check in.
Base. I mean, that's journalism. It's a people business. And I tell kids and students this all the time. Students, if you're listening, you pick up the phone or go have coffee with someone, just talk to them. That doesn't have to be a story or a column. Anyway, so I did make that call to this official and just to chat. And as you teed it up, I said, you realize how big this is. Now that Caitlin Clark obviously is declared for the draft, is coming into the WNBA. And this person said, yeah, this is probably the biggest thing to happen to the WNBA since Maya Moore. And as I say in the book, that was a surprising answer.
And Maya Moore is a terrific player, but not
and I say that in the book. I go through her, she's throughout the book because she's a young Caitlin Clark's favorite player.
Right.
And as when Caitlin got a hug when she was a little kid and ran away from her dad in Minnesota, 3.5 hour, 3:45 drive from Des Moines to Minnesota for the game. And Caitlin gets a hug from Maya Moore. Maya Moore said later, she goes, of all the kids I hugged, it's amazing to think one of them turned out to be Caitlin Clark. Right. So that's very cool. So Maya Moore, 4-time WNBA champion, UConn All-American Hall of Famer, amazing. Unfortunately, and I'll say this as an opinion journalist as well as giving commentary, it's a shame she didn't break through and have people in the produce section talking about her, but she didn't. And it's a funny thing about facts. Facts are facts. It didn't happen, and I wish it had. She's not only an amazing basketball player, but a terrific human, an American, fighting for social justice, getting someone who was wrongly imprisoned, released, ended up a family friend who she ended up marrying. They have a child. I mean, it's like, it's an amazing movie, her life.
Sure.
It's just terrific. But the fact of the people in line for hours, the TV ratings, the big one, as as I think a lot of people know, Caitlin Clark's final game, NCAA final, women's final, 2024, had 4 million more viewers than the men's NCAA final the next night. Again, a sentence I never thought I could say and will probably never be able to say again. 4 million more people watching the women's final because of Caitlin Clark. Yes, South Carolina won. They're great. Yes, Iowa, other players were there. It was Caitlin Clark, folks. It is Caitlin. She is the economic driver. She is not only moving the needle, she is the needle. And Maya Moore never had that. The TV ratings for her games were minuscule. I wish that weren't so. I covered some of those games and I did my best, but that's a fact. So the fact, going back to the anecdote, which is right at the beginning of that chapter, and I think I put it there for a reason. I think it helps the reader understand, Tom, just how completely clueless the WNBA was, because I did as much reporting as I could, obviously, if I didn't get something, if it's not sourced, if it's not up to my journalistic standards for my entire 40+ year career, it's not in the book. So you can trust everything in the book. That, of course, happened. I don't use the person's name, but it absolutely happened. But what I do say right after that is it possible, because I could not get this on the record or even off the record, I'll continue to keep reporting some of these things, even in my role now at USA Today. But is it possible they didn't believe it was going to happen for them because they had been getting short shrift from the male-dominated mainstream sports media for years? Did they just think, even that what we're seeing in college, it's just not going to translate? Now, I of course, when this person said this, I said, like, what? What are you talking about? And then they kind of chuckled, oh, yeah. but it tells us everything. Completely unprepared for what was coming with Caitlin Clark, completely unprepared for the national scrutiny that was going to come, not preparing the players for the moment. Hence, you have someone like Dejanay Carrington getting mad at me for asking specific questions that I've asked hundreds of male athletes and coaches. They've never had a problem with it, or if they've had, they certainly haven't gone to try to ban a journalist. But that shows that the players didn't understand what journalism is. You take my question, you hit it out of the park. It is your opportunity to clear the air. She did that. How did they not even understand that that actually helps them to have a specific question? And also was the union saying that, you know what, women can't handle the same questions as men? Is that the message that they're sending in 2024 to girls and boys in America and to all these players? Just pathetic lack of preparation by the WNBA. We're seeing it again this year with various things, including the refereeing. Stunning. So I'm very pleased with that anecdote, Tom, even if it, as a human being, I'm sad to see that anecdote. But as a journalist, of course, you go with the story. You don't get to have emotions in the middle of it, and that to me is as telling an anecdote as I have in the book.
Well, it's one thing too, like that the league was totally unprepared, and I'm not excusing them, but it's like, okay, maybe they were just overmatched in the moment. The thing that was really bothersome to me is the reaction of some of the more established people in the game, people like Diana Taurasi or people like Cheryl Swoops, or even like Cheryl Reeve, the head coach of Minnesota Lynx, who almost from the start were downplaying Caitlin Clark's accomplishments, maybe trying to warn people like, she's not going to be that good in the NBA. It's going to be a learning curve. And it seemed very personal. It reeked of jealousy and envy. I just didn't understand. And maybe this is where the league could have helped out as well with these players. Like, you don't realize the gift we have about to come here. Don't shoot it down before she even gets here. Like, what was that about, do you think?
What surprised me, and if it's one of the things that with this book, because I wasn't covering Iowa games, and I actually wasn't at either women's Final Four because I was preparing to go to the Masters. And so I was watching, on TV, I was watching at home like everyone else. It actually helped me, I think, because I was able to watch it not as a fan. I'm not a fan of Caitlin Clark. I'm not a fan of Iowa. I'm an observer. I'm a spectator. I'm a journalist. But to see it and to know that I've covered it, been so lucky and fortunate to cover every Olympics, as you referred to, since '84. Certainly not since 1896 when Barrett and Duke Coubertin was there, but it almost feels like it at this point. And I would have hoped to go to one as a fan, as a girl growing up. So I mean, it's just beyond a dream come true. And Super Bowls and covering the Washington NFL team for 3 years with Joe Gibbs, and they were winning games, winning Super Bowls. All the things that I've been lucky to cover, and Tiger, as I said, the length of his career. And here I was. I want to see the replay of that. I'm going to go on social media and watch that shot when Iowa beats Indiana with the buzzer beater. That's really the first time I watched her live. I'd seen clips. The Michigan pink jersey game sophomore year, but I was at the Beijing Olympics at that exact same time. So I just had missed a lot of it and was aware of her, but hadn't really watched as an observer. And so I'm now wanting to see it over and over again. And, what is she doing? She's chucking it from the parking lot and it's going in. It's coming from the next county and she's just heaving the ball in the air and there it goes in and she's jumping around and she's dramatic and she's demonstrative and she's revving up the crowd and it's funny and interesting. All the social media with her teammates, you get to know them. Obviously NIL, she's in the game. Now there's a commercial. Now she's on the State Farm commercial wearing the same jersey she was wearing 5 seconds ago in the timeout. I mean, it's just, and never injured. Now she is, which is again, another huge thing, but a big part of it. And I have that in the book from her AAU coach. Caitlin Clark missed one game in high school, sophomore year, never missed another game, AAU, high school, college, or first year of the WNBA. So she's always around. She's always visible. All of this comes together to create this person who is now just ready to not only become one of the most famous athletes in the country, but one of the most famous people in the country. And as she's making the turn from college to the pros, this is when it started to happen, right? And it struck me. So I'm just watching and looking at these comments on social media, X, Twitter, whatever. And you see the Diana Taurasi comment. I watched that live after Iowa beat UConn. So I'm sure that was a shock to the system for Taurasi and Sue Bird. And yeah, reality is coming, ha ha ha. It wasn't just Caitlin, but it was a couple, talking about the rookies. It was Scott Van Pelt asking the question. Well, here's a 41-year-old at the time giving a good swift kick to the shins to a 22-year-old who adores her. I mentor 22-year-olds. I mentor a lot of college students, 18 to 22, so high school kids get in touch. I talk to them. I spend time. You do that too, I'm sure. I would hate myself if I did what Diana Taurasi did to Caitlin Clark.
And not just to them, like publicly, to millions.
Oh, yeah. Right. Just
in front of the world.
Yeah, like big laugh riot, haha. Of course, Diana Taurasi was completely wrong. She has said that, reality was coming for her. She laughed, but not at the time, because even that first game that they've then played, Caitlin's going on for a minute and a half about what Diana Taurasi means to her. And Taurasi's like, yeah, we're playing, turns her head, well, yeah, we're playing tomorrow, whatever. Just nasty awfulness, awful, just, and by the way, that is Taurasi. She's a character. I like her. She's an amazing player, retired now. But guess what? Very few people, people in sports know who she was, but your average person, again, that the grandma and grandpa in the grocery store who are quickly getting food because they're coming home to watch Caitlin Clark play, and they figured out where Ion was on their cable system because they didn't know they had Ion until they're looking for Caitlin's game. They've never heard of Diana Taurasi, and this is their introduction to her. There you go. Fine, if you want to do that, knock yourself out. All of this was Cheryl Swoops, the flurry of falsehoods. Lie. And
saying that she broke the record over 5 years and because she had a COVID year, which wasn't true. She played during COVID, but it was her regular season, her regular freshman season, right?
Yeah, had the wrong number of shots she took per game, had a wrong age, or insinuated she was 25. Just terrible. And then people who wouldn't, then you would expect everyone to say, well, Cheryl was wrong. And I've covered Cheryl. I covered her in her, when they won the national title in Atlanta. In the NCAAs in the 90s. And, how do you not apologize for that? No, just kind of double down. So you could see it coming. And I'm a journalist, and that's a no-brainer to report on that. And I did. And I gave Diana Taurasi a chance to talk, and her agent, and Breanna Stewart finally got back to me, because Breanna Stewart, again, the question was, does Caitlin, at the Women's Final Four, Caitlin's senior year in Cleveland, does Caitlin Clark need a title to be considered one of the greats? Now, again, Tom, this is not the greatest. We're not talking about GOAT.
Just
we're talking
among
about
the greats.
Yeah. You and I could sit here right now. We won't. Happy viewers and listeners, we will not do this. We could come up with 50 one of the greats. We could probably come up with 100 one of the greats, right? I might say someone, you'd say, no way, blah, 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 back and forth. So one of the greats, and Breanna Stewart said, with high and mighty UConn. And I do think UConn, the people are shocked that it's an Iowa woman who's the one. I do think they cannot believe that this happened. And it explains a lot, right?
Right.
I have reporting. That is my educated guess that I'm happy to share. But Breanna Stewart, she does need a national title to be considered one of the greats. What on earth was Breanna Stewart talking about? This is the greatest scorer in Division I major college basketball history, male or female, passing, of course, Pistol Pete, the great Pistol Pete, among passing Kelsey Plum and Lynette Woodard. What Breanna Stewart? The arrogance, the chutzpah, the UConn or bust. I don't know what it was. I was happy to call it out. I continue to call it out. That's my job. It's an easy one for me. And then Gino, I like Gino Ariema, and I called him after this. We call it delusional fan base of Caitlin Clark. I said to him, "What do you mean? Like, does Roger Goodell go? Delusional fan, we don't want you." By the way, aren't fans by definition delusional at some level? Did they want to keep the small things small? And again, I ask these as questions because I don't have the answer. I tried all over and over for the WNBA, Kathy Engelbert, who I know, December, January, February, to speak to me. I said I'd come up on the Acela. I was talking to the PR people, finally got her to talk just on one little subject where she got it wrong then, and totally embarrassing. That's in the latter part of the book, the overtime epilogue. But I kept trying with the WNBA. They just did not want to speak to me. And interestingly, now that I'm on the book tour, now that we've had this success, and everyone, we're not even, the publicist at Scribner and my other PR people I'm working with don't even need to pitch this anymore. People are coming to us. You know who hasn't written one word about the book?
Oh.
ESPN.
Wow. I want to talk more about that. I also want to talk about the Olympic snub, but I just
Sure.
want to let people know, if you like this podcast, give us a like, give us a subscribe, good review. It really helps out a lot. So tell me more about this, Christine. ESPN not really covering this?
This is interesting. As I said, it's lovely embarrassment of riches. Everything is just this book, obviously debuting #2 in the New York Times bestseller list. Beyond my wildest dreams. As I was slogging through this in January and February, the thought of July was enticing. And then to have this book just take off, I'm so gratified. Obviously, people want to read about Caitlin Clark, of course. We made her as big as possible on the cover, and you see the 22 and in Indiana, and obviously, this is a journalistic look. It is not authorized; it is unauthorized, which is what you want.
Sure.
She'll write a book; it'll be amazing someday. But this is no holds barred. Every topic, every issue, and also she answered 40 to 50 questions that I asked her for the book. She's terrific. Just as 22 going on 40 or 50, as I say in the book, just remarkable how she handles everything. Just a delight to talk to, and lovely and respectful and kind and funny and super smart. So anyway, we're getting, people are very interested in getting in touch with us. They start out by the PR people pitch certain media people, of course. And I know they've talked to ESPN folks, never heard back. And obviously, I was talking with some of the PR people, and they said, "Isn't it stunning that ESPN has not written a word about this book?" And I don't know any more than that. But is it possible that the WNBA, obviously a business partner of ESPN, is potentially involved? I have no idea. I present that to you as an interesting situation. The WNBA did not want to talk to me for the book. I thought that was, personally, I thought that was a huge mistake. I had so many questions that I wanted to ask Cathy Engelbert, give her a chance to explain things. So many criticisms of her and her leadership. Dr. Harry Edwards, of course, the great civil rights leader, dear friend, Black man, obviously, who was the impetus behind the 1968 Black Power salute at the Mexico City Olympics of the 2 U.S. sprinters. Dr. Harry Edwards, his voice, not mine. First of all, he thinks Caitlin Clark is terrific. And he says the WNBA failed the players. That's in the book. And then I go on for several paragraphs, as you know, quoting Dr. Harry Edwards on what should have been done to prepare the players, not because they're damsels in distress, because they're strong, college-educated, fabulous women grown through Title IX in our country or from around the world. But because nothing like this had ever happened before, as we talked about earlier. And you've got a 74% Black league, and you've got a white woman who's going to be the one that's elevating it to a place it never had been before. Of course, we can use our brains. Of course, this is going to be interesting and maybe difficult and maybe fraught with some concerns. That's natural, especially set against the backdrop of a presidential election in our incredibly polarized society on politics, on race, gender, you name it. And that's Dr. Harry Edwards' voice, talking about Zoom calls and meetings and chats with players to work through it, to explain that, hey, you built this league. Take pride in the fact that now along comes a Caitlin Clark. That's Dr. Harry Edwards in the book. So he is very critical of the lack of preparation by the WNBA. And then Brian Scurry, the great goalkeeper on the 1999 women's soccer team, the first Black superstar of the most famous and best loved women's team on the planet, the U.S. soccer team.
Right.
And she says the same thing. This is your moment. Don't let it go by. She agrees with Dr. Harry Edwards. Have Zooms, talk it through, be prepared. None of that. So I wanted to present all that to Cathy Engelbert, to the leadership of the WNBA. The WNBA PR people knew that. I kept trying through them. The NBA people, I tried, kept going through them. You know me and you know journalism. You keep trying. You don't take no for an answer. You try in December, you try in January, February. I'll hop on the Acela. I didn't have time to hop on the Acela. I was writing this book. I was under the gun, but I was going to make that time, and they refused. They ignored me every way possible, I think to their detriment. Angel Reese, I tried 3 times. Probably I even went back to her PR people and her agent. I said, really, I would love to give Angel a chance to explain some of these quotes. I'm bending over backwards, giving, I would love to have her voice. Nope, nope, nope. That's fine. By the way, it's a free country. No one has to speak to me. But what I'm saying is then the book comes out. I'm so proud of it. It's making tons of news. We've got excerpts in People. We got excerpts. USA Today Network took a lot for various newspapers. And then CNN.com, the website for CNN, took the controversy chapter, the whole question and follow up, and the wanting to ban the journalist.
Right, which I'm going to ask you about in a moment here. Yeah.
Sure. And ESPN is silent. So what is that? I love it. I mean, if anyone watching this, ESPN, Tom, if you want to check it out, is it possible that their business partner, the WNBA, didn't want coverage? I'd love to talk to ESPN about the book. There's a lot of news that they're missing, and it's their choice. But it really is fascinating to me, someone who's been in the business a long time. Why? Why is that? And I guess maybe someday we'll get the answer. Someday we won't. Obviously, the book seems to be selling without ESPN's coverage. But come along, join the ride, ESPN.
Well, there was, like you mentioned, there was a controversy. Like, it seemed like everything with Caitlin Clark is some sort of controversy surrounding it. But somehow you got dragged into this there was an incident that happened in a game where Caitlin Clark got poked in the eye. You went to the player who poked Caitlin Clark in the eye and asked him very straightforward questions like, what happened? And there was an incident where the player was seen laughing on the bench. You asked, were you laughing about that? Well, again, very straightforward. This is where I actually was mentioned in the book because I defended your line of questioning. Not only were you sort of blown off in the moment by the player, but then the Women's Players Association, the union, that represents the players, including Caitlin Clark, by the way, wanted you, basically your credentials taken. They wanted USA Today to take action against you. It was stunning to me, the reaction, and it further proved to me like this league and the players themselves, they're just not prepared for this moment. Like what stands out looking back now, and you write about it in the book, like what stands out about not necessarily the exchange, but the reaction to the exchange?
Yeah, it was stunning to me too. That at the time, as a friend sent me on Friday, I was going to the airport. I just done the exit interviews with the Fever, including Caitlin Clark, Leah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, everybody. And then I was going to the airport and I saw this text and I was, what is this? I didn't even, when they're wanting to ban me, and they go on and on with this 5 pages of stuff about me.
By the way, to be clear, like you posted the exchange on social media. So it wasn't like, here's my version of what happened. You posted here's exactly the way it went down. So anyway, exactly. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, and I videotaped it. A lot of people, I was asked by someone, why did you videotape it and put it on? Because, well, one, that's what everyone does now. And you and I have been around a while, but I can figure that out. And I know how to videotape and ask a question and hold the phone at the same time. And also it's the clicks, the hits, the interest because of Caitlin Clark. I mean, you just, for many reasons, you want to get the word out there and you want to show exactly what it is. I'm not filtering through and writing it down. You will see it. And so I was obviously thought it was fine because, of course, I put it out there immediately. I think it is 5 or 6 million views now, whatever it is. And that's fine. I mean, but it shows you exactly. And it also, you hear my voice, which you can tell I'm not reading it because I'm actually formulating the question kind of as I go along, which is called being human. It's called natural. It's what we do when we're in scrums. Hey, but one more little thing on that, Joe Theismann, what would that pass, with second quarter, no, third quarter, this is how we talk. Again, it clearly showed that I was, again, this was not a planned attack.
Yeah, it wasn't a scripted type of thing.
Right. These were questions that male athletes have known for years to just hit it out of the park, take the question and run. As I said, I've asked so many tougher questions of Tiger Woods, Michael Phelps, you name it, male athletes, and what a terrible message the Players Union had. Like these women, you're going to have to protect them from a question from someone who's covered the league since the 90s, but also this is a question that the athletes should want to clear the air as the internet was exploding and she was being excoriated, criticized, hated for it. Here's your chance, Dejanay Carrington, to give the answer. So anyway, I was surprised. I was like, what am I looking at? My sports editor USA Today, Roxana Scott, called me, said, so that confirmed. And now I realize this is a thing. They want to ban me. They want to take my credentials. And Roxana, of course, then wrote with leadership of USA Today, wrote a wonderful defense of me, and they put that out immediately as well. And then it just kind of took off as a story. You wrote about it. Thank you for the defense of journalism and questions. Tara Sullivan at the Boston Globe did. Jake Tapper, his people called me like that day and said, "We want you on for Monday." And I work for CNN. Often it's like an hour before or a day before. So for 3 days before, that Jake really wanted to get into this, and his defense was wonderful. And then, you had people like Megan Rapinoe, who I've known for a long time. I've even moderated an event with her at a Google conference in Phoenix. Megan and I know each other and very friendly. And she said the question that feels racist. And of course, I went through her agent, who I know very well, to see if Megan wanted to talk about that, and she did not. So I was reporting then about me. I tried to keep it kind of third person, and the way I would do. So it's just the facts. That chapter, the controversy chapter, I think people will be fascinated by the behind the scenes, Dejanay Carrington's behavior, yelling at 3 journalists the next day, one of whom was me, thinking she heard me say something. She was behind a curtain. We were in the catering area backstage because practice was going on. So the journalists could not be on the court at that time. So we just went and sat somewhere at a table. Dejanay Carrington happens to be walking by, and all of a sudden her head pops through the catering curtains, bizarre. And she starts yelling at me. Well, it wasn't my voice she heard, because I didn't even know what was being talked about. I was listening to my 2 colleagues more and more, just clearly. And then she's yelling so much, the Connecticut Sun PR people, so this is not me or the other 2 journalists. I quote them because we did have a debrief on this, and that was on the record, and that was on my phone. The Connecticut Sun PR person has to go running over to, get Dejanay and Marina Mabry to get her away from the 3 journalists. There was no physical contact. It was an athlete yelling. I've probably been yelled at, hundreds of times. No big deal, other than it was so revealing again of just the utter lack of preparation and understanding of what was coming with Caitlin Clark. I am giving this league the respect, Tom, it deserves. I'm covering this league exactly like I cover the NFL, exactly like I cover the Olympics. And again, are they saying they're not ready for it? They can't handle it. They want kid glove treatment. It's a terrible look for them that will only get worse. And if they can't handle, this is the moment. Caitlin Clark, this is the moment.
Yeah, there's not another one coming, as far as we know. Yeah,
it would be great. And maybe there's a 10-year-old who's chucking it from half court, and she will be the one. But that's, or 12-year-old or 15-year-old or whatever. And Juju Watkins, let's hope she gets healthy.
And Paige Beckers is there are a lot of fabulous players. It's not
exactly.
Caitlin Clark.
It's the entertainment value. Caitlin's an entertainer. She's a high wire act. She brings people like Tiger that Paige Beckers is a great basketball player, but Paige cannot sell out an 8,000 seat arena in Dallas. And I'll stand corrected if they've had a few sellouts now. But
yeah, we're recording this on like July 21st or 22nd.
Right.
I want to ask you too about the Olympic snub, because Caitlin Clark was left off the team. I get it, to the WNBA. That's not the WNBA's choice, but let's face it, they could have put pressure on USA Basketball if they wanted to, and they wanted Caitlin Clark on that team. I think they could have gotten her on there. Again, another just missed opportunity. And what I didn't know until I read your book is the reason why she was left off the team. I was stunned by the answer, it wasn't like, well, I mean, and you heard the public excuses like, well, she's not playing well, she's tired, she needs a break, she hasn't earned her way there. Let's face it, she was one of the 12 best women, I think, in America at the time. But the idea that, well, we don't want to upset her fans by putting her on, because that's what I'll let you tell why the reason was, but they didn't want to offend her fans was basically the reason.
Well, and that's what I found out just by chatting again with people. And this was before I was able to break the news. Someone read me the list, and Caitlin Clark was not on it.
And you broke the story on that, right? Yeah.
Right. And so I broke that story for USA Today. And by the way, you'd asked earlier about writing a book while working for USA Today. For the time period that I was with the Indiana Fever, those 6 weeks, I was not writing for USA Today. Except one story on Angel Reese when she was out, and Caitlin's reaction to Angel Reese being out for the lovely comments. And so but so I broke that story. But earlier in the day, as I was chatting with people, I ran into two longtime women's basketball veterans, trust them both, known them for a long time, independent of each other. And I said, what do you think about Caitlin Clark's chances to be on the Olympic team? This was a story I was working on since January. I have the Olympic sources. I know, obviously, the selection process because I've covered it since 1984 for various teams. Swimming, you touch the wall first, you make the team. Second, you make the team. Track and field, you go through the tape or come to the. But with teams like basketball or sports like basketball and gymnastics, it's much more political,
right?
And with the needs for certain positions and certain apparatus in apparati in gymnastics. Anyway, both of these officials, to the point you were just making, said to me when I said, "What does it look like for Caitlin?" And they're like, "I don't think so." And I'm like, first of all, that surprised me. And then they said, why? I mean, her statistics were better then than Diana Taurasi's. I think people get it wrong and think, well, I was just saying you put her on for the eyeballs. Well, yes, that growing the game is part of the mission statement of USA Basketball. And there's no better way to grow the game globally. It's why the NFL plays in Europe. It's why the NHL is going to stop their season for the Olympics. It's why Major League Baseball starts in Tokyo. You want to grow. USA Basketball had the perfect opportunity and decided, no, we do not want Caitlin Clark on our team. We do not want to grow the game internationally. I mean, appalling decision by USA Basketball. As I said, I've covered a lot of things, never seen anything worse in my life, in my 1 years of covering the Olympics. And, but yeah, so they said, we're worried about the fan base for Caitlin Clark, which is massive, getting upset if she only plays 5 minutes a game. And I literally laughed out loud the first time I heard that. What? Like, this is a joke. And then the second time I heard it, I said, oh, wow, this is a thing. This is something. This is the thinking of women's basketball, leadership. Neither of these people were on the committee to make the decision, but both were totally plugged into everything going on with the team, with the selection process, with everything that was happening. And hurt feelings, or whatever. And we can't handle angry tweets or something. I mean, that's my right. Guessing this means. And I what are you talking about? And I said to one, or I know I said this many times after, you put her on the team if you want to put her on the team. Obviously, they didn't want to. And you have the coach, Cheryl Reeve, or you have USA Basketball officials, Jen Rosati, who's in charge of the women's committee, have a press conference or a Zoom conference, and you say, to all the fans out there, we welcome you. We get it. Caitlin's probably going to play 5 minutes a game, maybe 7, maybe 10. She's not going to start. Get ready for it. Be prepared. She's on the team. She's yours. We're thrilled she's here. We'll get her in when we can. And you prepare everybody. Like the amateur hour, what we've just been talking about on the WNBA, USA Basketball, unbelievably embarrassing. Unbelievably. And that's what they did. And so anyway, they picked 42-year-old, then turning 42-year-old Diana Taurasi, who'd missed 4 games, oft injured, 4 games due to injury just a few weeks before, put her on the team to get a going away present. Just appalling. I mean, again,
you know what? And let's be clear. I'm saying this and not you. And I know it's not her personality, and it's probably not up to her. I thought it would have been wonderful if Diana Taurasi had gone to USA Basketball and said, you know what? Give Caitlin Clark my spot. I don't need to win a 4th or 5th, whatever it was, gold medal. I don't even know. That just goes to show. I don't even know how many she's won. And I follow sports. I know she's won a bunch. And it would have been a wonderful, not only would it have been the right thing to do, I think it would have been a great message to the rest of the WNBA, to the other players to say, hey, we all need to make room for, I'm going to give up my Olympic spot for her. Again, it's not her responsibility ultimately, and that's not her personality. But I thought, boy, what a wonderful gift that would have been to women's basketball. That's been so good to her. Anyway, that's me saying it on you.
Well, it would have been legendary and remembered forever. And she would have been remembered for that way, that way forever. Instead, she's remembered for the fact that, Caitlin Clark and Diana Taurasi both scored the same number of points and played the same number of minutes in that gold medal game against France, which was so ragged. The U.S. barely won by 1 point, lucky to win it. They both obviously had the same, they had the same number of points, as I said, same number of minutes, 0 and 0. One of them was sitting on the bench in Paris, and the other was 4,000 miles away in the United States. So if Diana Taurasi was that important, and of course they needed a spark in that game, 3-point shooting, you put Caitlin Clark in the third quarter, she hits a few threes, and that's exactly, she would have helped win the game for them, but she wasn't out there. So, but if Taurasi is so important, you have to have her. How on earth do you not play her in that game? And Cheryl Reeve's behavior, I deal with that. We don't need to go into it, but it's just abysmal. She again, targeting a 22-year-old, a 50-something woman. Like, how dare you join our club or something? And I will even say this, the reaction to this book, there have been podcasters that have asked me, like, well, why are you writing a book? Like, you weren't covering the WNBA every day. I had someone told me, a very reputable source the other day, was talking to someone actually at ESPN saying, well, Christine hasn't been around. And I said to the person who knows me well, I said, do the 1990s not count? I'm shocked there aren't 10 books on Caitlin Clark right now. It's almost like, again, it's like a little, like, is this a little club that, it's so unfortunate because the message it's sending is it's like a little, like girls club, some slumber party or something, which I hate that I'm saying these words to you. I hate that, Tom.
Yeah.
This is the moment. Title IX is creating these great women who are going to be president in the 30s, 40s in our country, leading the nation. They already are. Gretchen Whitmer plays sports. She was born in 1971. Anyone born in 70s, 80s, 90s, full blast, early part of the century, Title IX, right? Caitlin Clark. I have a niece who's a great athlete, right? Born at that same time. They got all of that. And then to see this, why did you write a book? Well, when I would cover Tiger Woods, and be in the scrum with Tiger, the guy on my right, a journalist, was writing a book on Tiger. And the guy on my left was probably writing a book on Tiger. The next year in that scrum, different guys, he's writing a book and this guy's writing a book. I mean, what is it about the WNBA and the media that seem like there's a lot of people, I believe, and that's fine. They have every right. It's a free country to be like angry that I wrote a book. Well, obviously it's borne out. People want to read it. It is, I'm so honored that it is selling and it's a New York Times bestseller. But there's something going on in the mindset that is not just the league, but the coverage of the league. And you and I understand being protective as journalists.
Right.
You got to be, you get to know people, you got sources. But my goodness, when I was covering the Washington football team and when you were covering sports, if one of my great sources fumbled 3 times in a game, I was writing about that person fumbling 3 times in a game. And they understood because they knew the ground rules that no matter how friendly they might be to me or helpful with my reporting, that I'm writing a news story. My responsibility is to the readers and the viewers. That's yours, Tom, forever. That's what we do. How the WNBA, some of these young journalists, some of whom I've helped, and I continue to want to help and mentor and encourage, how they seem to be like protectors or their responsibility is to the players. No. Your responsibility is to your readers and viewers, to the facts, getting things right and telling the truth. And I think that's all part and parcel of this entire conversation of their inability to accept Caitlin Clark. Some of them, not all, many do. And Gino saying delusional fans and all the mistakes, the worst sports prediction ever. It's all in the book. And I told them it's the worst sports prediction ever. Wrong. What was it about this moment? And then people may be thinking that I was working with Caitlin, right?
Right.
Which, it is an unauthorized book. That's my choice. That would be Caitlin's choice as well, and her team. And that's what you want. You want a journalistic look at this moment and this incredible athlete. So lots of questions. I'm still fascinated by all of it and so happy to speak with you about it, of course.
We really appreciate your time on this. And I'd love to have you come back. I said at the top that you're a sports pioneer. And I don't even want to gloss over that word because it's almost like a cliche, like, a pioneer in sports journalism. You truly are. And what you've done over your career has been remarkable. I'd love for you to come back another time and talk about your career, talk about being a columnist for all these years and the changes you've seen in the industry, not only for men and women, just for journalists in overall, but for those who are watching this on YouTube, this is the book, On Her Game, Caitlin Clark and a Revolution in Women's Sports. Christine Brennan, thanks so much. This was great. I really appreciate it.
Tom, as you know, I'm a huge fan. And you and I go back a long way. It's great to see you, and thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Thanks everybody out there for watching, for listening. If you give us a like and a review, subscribe, that would all be great. It helps us out a lot. We'll see you next time on the Poynter Report Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Poynter Report Podcast. The podcast is produced by the Department of Journalism and Digital Communication at the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg. Executive producers are Elliot Weiser and Ren LaForme. Producer is Tom Jones, and our director is Christopher Campbell. And a special thank you to Neil Brown and Dr. Mark Walters.